My name is Jeremy Devins, and welcome back to the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast. And here in this episode, I'm going to talk about accidents. So, how do we know how to see this in charts, and how do we prepare for it? Because I got into an accident in the last week. I'm not going to show all the scars, it's pretty graphic, but I got a new motorcycle last month, and riding a motorcycle is very challenging. So I had a fall and got some pretty gnarly scrapes. I'm going to talk about how to look for this in charts and how to know when you might be able to plan for it and know it might be happening. And it's not something I deeply researched before, but this week I had a good reason to. And how you can see that. So if you don't know your own birth chart, go to quietmindastrology.com, get your free birth chart. You can also sign up for the Vedic Astrology mentorship there. You can sign up for a relationship offering. If you listen to this later, that'll be posted. There's going to be a special Valentine's Day event happening for free. You'll see that all at quietmindastrology.com. And if you're listening to this later, and you can also get your free birth chart there, sign up for free weekly horoscopes and updates. So I've got several examples here, people who have been in car accidents, and then how I might be able to see that through transits, through the research. And this is sort of the foundational level of what I do, looking for patterns. How do you know the timing of things? So what planet often is associated with accidents? Do you know? That would be Mars. And a planet that is associated with taking things away, a graha, not a planet, is Ketu. So Mars cuts, accidents, scrapes, bruises, damage, triggering of events, changes of events. Ketu takes things away, releases things. It essentially is spiritualizing. It cuts away things that are not necessarily needed so that we can have a more spiritual relationship to life. And spiritually, they're wonderful. Materially, they're more challenging. So you put those together, and we have a recipe for accidents. Significant ones, like here, if you're watching the video, you don't need to see this, but if you're watching the video, you can see it. James Hetfield, singer of Metallica, in 1986, year I was born, there was a big bus accident. They were on tour, the band, and they lost their bass player, passed away in that accident. But James was okay, right? So these are non-fatal car accidents we're looking at here. And I also want to say, as I go into this research, that this is just research. Their patterns does not mean it's always going to play out the same way. But when you know the pattern, you can prepare for it. And there's positive sides to it, of course, as well. So whenever Ketu is in this situation, Rahu's on the other side of it. So we have to look at Rahu as well. And I think these transits also can bring about a lot of personal growth, which we'll see with some of these people as well. So James Hetfield, and what's happening on this day of September 27th, 1986, when this bus accident happens? Well, the pattern that I've found that you can look for in charts is when Ketu and Mars are both transiting over Kendra houses. So the Kendra houses are the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. These are the main areas of life. And you can see this if you know your own birth chart well, and you know the transits happening, or in a reading, or if you have software like Parashar's Light. So it is a little more advanced to actually know this is happening. But like I share the transits every week and every month here on the podcast, you can keep up with it that way. You can track it with Parashar's Light, the app, the software that I use, or just getting an annual reading. You can know these things are coming up. So here with James, we have Mars over the 1st house in his moon chart, Rahu over the 4th, Rahu over the 4th, Ketu over the 10th in his ascendant transits. So this is the pattern that I've seen, and it's true for me and all the people I'll show today. Non-fatal car accidents, significant accident, but non-fatal, and when there's Mars and Ketu over the Kendra houses. Again, it's important not to turn this into something that's a wish fulfillment or a negative fulfillment of a manifestation of, expect something bad to happen, so something bad happens. but to know that this is a challenging placement, transit, and fortunately the Mars element's only there for 2 months at a time. But unfortunately, it's the Kendra houses. So the pattern is that it's over 4 possible different places. So this can happen quite a bit, and it can be quite common. So it is something to be aware of, knowing your 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses, what signs are there, and then where Mars is, where Ketu is. Again, not to be paranoid, don't overthink it, don't worry too much about it, but be aware of it. Same thing for me. I see Mars over my 4th house and Ketu over my 1st house for my ascendant chart. We also have doubly so for me. So Ketu over my 4th, Mars over my 7th for my moon chart. So I have this very strongly right now, and or on the day this accident happened for me. So there's that element. Arnold Schwarzenegger. And we see this as well here. Let me just change the time here to check this. Yeah, so that's showing right. Just making sure. But yeah, this is January 8th, 2006 when he had his car accident. You see Mars over the 1st in the ascendant chart, K2 over the 10th. Right, so you get the idea. Same with Tiger Woods. He had a car accident. Kanye West. Kanye West was the inspiration for his first hit single, Through the Wire. So good things can come from this, of course. And arguably, Metallica became a much bigger band after this accident. They're already on a huge trajectory, but this also is a big part of their story and their growth. But you know, that was, for James himself, it was not as bad, but for losing their bass player, it was not so good. Morgan Freeman as well. See Mars and K2 over the Kendra houses. This is a client's chart, no name shown, but same thing. Accident during K2 and Mars over Kendra houses. And then we'll go into looking at the transits for this week. But I just wanted to talk about this up front, of this element of looking for accidents. And it happens pretty commonly because the Kendra houses, there's 4 possible places this could be. So it's not the most uncommon thing. And you know, accidents happen all the time, all over the world. So it's something not to get too worried about or overthink or let fear dictate anything, but to know that the pattern is there and that when it's happening, to be extra cautious. Like for me, if you're curious, you know, I was driving my motorcycle through a very winding road, lots of ups and downs and twists and turns, and very challenging, and still learning how to drive my motorcycle safely. Just took one of those turns a little too fast, hit the brakes a little too hard. It caused the bike to spin and fall, and I caught myself with my right side of my body. So I scraped down the right side of my body on the pavement, and fortunately he's able to get to the hospital pretty quickly and cleaned it up, and now it's just been like waiting and letting things heal. So the other element to this I want to talk about is our intention, right? And that day I was in a kind of weird mood, not sure if I should go to this event or do this thing or what, and not fully grounded and present in a sense, like I normally feel. Like I was feeling a little bit off. And even when I was driving, like I stopped my bike a couple times and just paused and felt like I should go slow for some reason. But you know, and then driving, I was like in a kind of down mood, and there's like this underlying desire, like if I'm being really honest and true with myself, like the deeper intention that I was feeling was like wanting some sort of care and support. And one way you could get that is by being injured, and then you need people to help you. So it was one version of this intention. And that's my attitude and approach to life. I know not everybody agrees with that, but I do think that our intention is very important, and it is shaping our reality. when good or bad things happen to us. There's some level of intention behind it. Not always, not 100%, but I choose to live from that perspective of like responsibility and choice and creating with reality. So yeah, there was an intention of like wanting to feel supported and cared for in that moment or before driving, and then created a circumstance where that was necessary, where now I have to have support, I have to have help because I skinned my knee really bad, so it's like hard to walk and bend my knee. Fortunately, it's all just on the flesh, so there's no major injuries, but it does slow me down a lot and require me to ask for help and people to like bring me groceries and things like this. So there was an intention in there, and that is one way to fulfill that intention. But added to that, I was like in a kind of weird mood and all this. So, that's what happened. And I think it's an opportunity to just clarify and be even more intentional of like, well, what do I really want? And well, it's not necessarily to be injured, but there's a desire to slow down, to receive support and this sort of thing. So I can focus on that and create that. And I think that we are always creating our reality, always creating our experience, in my opinion. You may have a different opinion, that's okay. And I think the astrology points to the patterns that are at play and the potentials. So like this Mars K2 over the Kendra's pattern can show up as accidents. It also could show up as opportunities to let go. K2 is about letting go, taking things away. Mars is a catalyst to take action, to do something different. And I had this feeling throughout the week also, like I needed to take some sort of action to change something, and I resisted it. I refused the call from the universe. And it's also part of the hero's journey. You set an intention, you want to go in a direction. The universe says, okay, let's go this way. And you say, no, I'm not sure about that, or I'm not going to say yes to that. And that is the refusing the call of the universe. So then it comes in some other form. And there's the idea of like, first, the universe is throwing a pebble on your path, and you're aware of it, then a rock, then a stone, then a boulder, eventually until you listen, until you receive the message and actually do the thing that you need to do. And part of that for me is knowing I need to ask for more support, ask for help, and my own path in this way. So clear message received for me, and hopefully for you, whenever you go through any transit, you can see it as an opportunity, a catalyst, especially these Mars K2 over the Kendra houses. It's a catalyst to make some sort of significant change in your life. And where it is, what it's going to be, depends on the house it's in, the sign it's in. It depends on your intuition as well. Like you have this intuition and And for example, like I was doing this journaling last week, I wrote a very specific phrase in my journaling, and then within minutes received a text message with that exact same phrase, and this basically somebody offering to help in my work. And I was like, oh, I'll get to that later. I ignored it, and I was kind of like just procrastinating on that. But it was just uncanny, like exactly the phrase I wrote, very distinct phrase, and they wrote it in this text out of nowhere. Things like this are everywhere and always around us. And I think the more meditation, the more practices we do, the more quickly this happens and the less resistance we have. But I was feeling a little unclear and uncertain this last week for myself personally. We all go through those phases, and not sure how to respond to that. It's like, that's very interesting. It's amazing how it's exactly what I was asking for, but also there's a level of like needing to be able to receive it. And I think that's part of where my resistance has been, and this, part of my story this week of seeing where that resistance is. And everyone I tell about my injuries, they're like, oh, how can I help? What do you need? Do you need anything? And my sort of default response is like, no, I'm good. I don't want to ask too many people. I don't want to be a burden on others. And that's been part of my journey for myself. So we all have our different version of this. Maybe you can relate, but it's going to look a little different for everyone. And I think the universe is just giving me that clear message this week to actually receive the support and ask for it and see where I've been resistant to receiving that support. So that's our look at accidents. And now let's talk about the 5 significant transits happening this week, where we see today, as I'm recording, February 9th, we've got the new moon in Dhanishta just happened, starting this new beginning around anything that you want to set intentions for. So a powerful time this weekend to set intentions, move into a new direction. Great for initiating new projects. I will actually be moving in the midst of all this. So on Monday, I'm moving to a new place that's really nice and really excited for it. But I will have to ask for help as the theme of today's episode for me, like learning to ask for help. And I was like, maybe I could just, move on my own. But now I'm in a circumstance where I have to ask for help because I can't do it on my own. So for me, that's part of the story of initiating this new phase of like receiving more support. And for you, it's going to be different, but look where Capricorn is in your chart. You can find your free birth chart at quietmindastrology.com. You can schedule a reading there. You can join the mentorship, if you want to go really deep with all this. It's a positive influence for group activities and collaboration, which again is a big part of my lesson here. And potential for unexpected challenges or resistance to change. All right, so you may find that yourself. You may notice where you have resistance, where you're getting the call to go somewhere, but you're refusing it, you're resisting it. There's an opportunity to make change with that now, willingly, not having to go through an accident, but to make that change. Also, today Venus moved to Uttara Shada for 10 days in Sagittarius and then to Capricorn. It's harmonious and balanced interactions and relationships. Lovely energy. Great for focus on long-term stability and commitment. Can bring a lot of depth into relationships. Good time for sharing financial endeavors and doing things like maybe going somewhere on adventure or date together in relationship. Can be overly cautious or conservative in matters of the heart during this time, where you may, especially when it gets to Capricorn in a few days, where you may feel a little bit cold or detached or not fully open emotionally. But there's a sense of practicality and maturity to that. It's like taking things slow and practical in relationships is good for these 10 days, February 9th to 19th. Then on February 11th, Venus does move into Capricorn, as mentioned, which I mentioned in the monthly horoscope. You can go back to that. And then on February 13th, Sun moves into Aquarius, which also on the monthly horoscope, you can go back to that one. But good time for progressive and forward-thinking ideas, being involved in group-oriented activities. And this can bring more financial stability in relationships, and a good time to take a practical approach to relationships and most areas of life. But when Sun moves into Aquarius, February 13th for the month, it's a good time to explore new ideas, new values. Again, I go into it more in the monthly horoscope. I'll be starting the next class of the Vedic Astrology Mentorship. So a great time for learning things like this, progressive ideas and values. And then on Valentine's Day, the 14th, I'll be hosting a special workshop with a friend of mine who's an expert in relationships. And I always talk about the 4 aims of life here: health, wealth, relationships, and purpose. But I don't consider myself an expert on relationships, at least in the more traditional sense. And I have a very interesting sort of path of relationships in my own life, and lots of karma I'm working through there and lessons I'm learning there. But my guest host has an amazing partnership and has done amazing work helping others find their partner, particularly type A women. So if you feel like you are a woman who is very maybe successful in your work, or looking for a man who can really meet you in your work, then I'll be hosting this free workshop with her. I'll have the link in the show notes and more details on that coming up. That'll be free on Valentine's Day. It's about manifesting your partner, your soulmate in 2024. This is what she teaches, and I'll be supporting her, talking about the astrology of it. So I think it'll be really cool. But then on Thursday, February 15th, we have Mercury moving into Dhanishta, which is where the new moon was, of course, on the new moon on today, on February 9th. But then next week on February 15th, the Thursday, we'll have Mercury in Dhanishta. So clear and innovative communication comes through, especially in group settings. It's a good time to voice anything that needs to be voiced in a group, or communicate or talk about any ideas that are important to you. Great for brainstorming and sharing ideas. Dhanishta is about wealth, right? In the year 2 mentorship I offer, we are focusing on Dhanishta right now because of the new moon in Dhanishta. So it's Dan and Ishta. It's this offering to the divine, this wealth of spirituality. And Mercury and Dhanishta is a great time to do mantra practice or pranayama, this offering to the divine. Great for clarifying your ideas, being more receptive to unconventional ideas. You can be overly fixed on your own viewpoints, leading to potential conflicts with others because of the Capricorn influence here. But it's a great time to take action, get stuff done, and communicate your ideas and values and move them forward. So those are some of the big energies this week. Again, the new moon in Dhanishta and Capricorn, Venus in Uttara Shada. This great energy for relationships and great energy for starting new things, beginning in a new direction with Dhanishta. Venus in Capricorn, bringing more grounded, practical energy into relationships. Sun in Aquarius, bringing this sense of expression and leadership into unique ways of expressing yourself. And then Mercury in Dhanishta is great for breath work, pranayama, mantra practices, and getting lots of new ideas out and brainstorming and being more creative and expressing yourself in the world. So if you enjoyed this podcast, take a moment to leave a review, share it with a friend, and you can check out quietmindastrology.com to get free weekly horoscopes to your inbox and exclusive offers there. And that's where you'll hear about the free workshop coming up on Valentine's Day, the Vedic Astrology Mentorship, all the other offers I do, life alignment readings. It's all there at quietmindastrology.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.